And, Peter, Brock Purdy is such an intriguing story because everyone connected to the 49ers organization just kind of holding their breath for the next quarterback injury because that's been their life the last 6 years. Purdy is the only one who seems to be unconcerned about his status, about his health, about his ability to play in 2023.
Mike, I think the interesting part of Brock Purdy that happened during the course of this offseason is everybody saw he got hurt in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, hurt his elbow, had to get surgery. But the other part of it that was weird, that was really kind of worrisome for the 49ers, is that Brock Purdy and the 49ers picked the team physician, the orthopedist of the Texas Rangers, the baseball team. And he was going to go get the surgery done about 3 weeks after the NFC Championship game in mid to late February. And so he went there, and the doctor said to him, "Listen, you're not ready. You still have a lot of swelling there. You got to do some more rehab to get the swelling down." So it was another 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks after that before he actually got the surgery. And Purdy told me he was really worried when he was put off from getting the surgery in February. He was really worried that, in fact, that was going to affect his readiness for the start of this season. Obviously, it hasn't done. I watched practice yesterday, as he said, the first time he practiced 3 days in a row. And I thought he threw the ball great. And he told me absolutely he doesn't have any pain. It looks like he's going to be okay. Kyle Shanahan told me he's talked to several quarterbacks who've had this surgery in the NFL, including a good friend of his named Steve Berline. And Berline told him essentially, once you get the surgery, it's not going to be an issue. So to me, I don't view it as a huge issue. Obviously, he's got to go out and do it, but I don't view it as a huge issue for the Niners entering the season.
Peter, what do you think the ceiling is with Brock Purdy at this point? I mean, can he be significantly better in 2023, even though he's not really surprising anybody anymore?
Well, Myles, I think the 49ers would take what he was in the last 5 regular season games and 2 playoff games, honestly. I mean, if you think about it, this is a guy who had a rating of 107.3, completed 67% of his throws, won every start that he had a real good touchdown to interception ratio. I think the 49ers would sign up for a full season of that. I think one of the things that Kyle Shanahan, when he talks about him, I think the one thing, and you guys were talking about the Browns' backup quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And one of the things, I remember talking to people about the quarterbacks in this draft before this thing, and a couple of people compared the UCLA quarterback of 2023 to the Iowa State quarterback of 2022 when Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. He started, I believe, 47 games at Iowa State, and you just can't duplicate that. Why is Trey Lance so far behind? Because he has played 1 season of football since he graduated from a mid-level high school in the state of Minnesota. So what do you expect? And so I think Purdy, obviously if he stays healthy, and with the hex on quarterbacks that there's been since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over in 2017, you do not sell insurance for that stuff because there's only 1 year that they've had a very healthy quarterback for the season. And you see what happens. In that year, they went to the Super Bowl and were within 7 or 8 minutes of beating Kansas City for it. So I think that is really their goal, obviously, to get a full healthy season out of Purdy.
You mentioned Trey Lance, and despite everything they gave up to move up to get him in the 2021 draft, he's now battling Sam Darnold. They're listed as the number 2 quarterback behind Brock Purdy. A lot of 49ers fans freaked out about the possibility that Lance is just never going to be anything. They're never going to get anything out of him. He's never going to do anything positive to help that team. Where does it stand right now in this battle to be the backup to Brock Purdy?
Well, in the practice I watched yesterday, Sam Darnold took all the number 2 reps. So what does that mean? It could mean that they're just giving Darnold, hopefully, a chance to play with some better players, including some starters. It could just be they're alternating it. And Kyle Shanahan, I think, legitimately is looking at both guys as the possible number 2. I will be surprised if the number 2 quarterback is not Sam Darnold. And the reason is, I think you can just see it. He's a little bit more confident, seems to be playing in that offense with a better state of readiness than Trey Lance. And look, a lot of people are going to make judgments, and rightfully so, on the fact how much was wasted if indeed Lance never works out in San Francisco, and that is indeed what it's looking like now. But I think this is one of those things that if you get caught up in this, as if you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, you can't get caught up in this because, what good does it do you? You made a judgment at the time that we thought that there were 2 quarterbacks who we really liked, Mac Jones, Trey Lance. And we thought that Trey Lance was going to be the better player long-term because of his ability to create, to make plays on the run, those kind of things. And what can you say? He's just had 2 debilitating injuries and just has not been able to play. And of course, it looks terrible. Everybody around there knows it looks terrible. You trade 3 ones, or you basically use the currency of 3 ones to pick a quarterback who you might have to let go after 4 years. It's embarrassing, but there's nothing you can do now. And look, I think one of the most interesting stories in the NFL right now is that, the first pick, or the number 1 quarterback is Mr. Irrelevant. The number 2 quarterback's the 3rd pick in the draft. The number 3 quarterback is the 3rd pick in the draft. It's just, I don't know that that's ever happened anything like that's ever happened in NFL history.
Well, it makes it a lot easier when you go to back-to-back NFC championship games, probably. Hey, Peter, did you get any sense that they were concerned that Nick Bosa's not there and whatever the contract situation is? You feel like they feel confident they're going to be able to get that done?
There's really sort of a news blackout hanging over Nick Bosa there, so you don't hear a lot of talk about it. But I would be surprised if Nick Bosa was not there opening day. I wouldn't say shocked, but I'd be surprised. Myles, if he is, assuming he is there opening day, I think they're going to be able to figure out a way to get something done. The 49ers have been very good in their history, the Lynch-Shanahan history of figuring out a way of getting your best players to stay and play. And I just think whenever the dam does break and he does come back and play, they're going to be very, very, very difficult to stop on the defensive front.
Look, I personally think it's just a matter of both sides figuring out when the clock strikes midnight. That's the moment where you go to your bottom line, you get it done. If you go before then, you're going to get squeezed off of it. I think it's coming up here just as they get ready for their preparations heading into week 1 against the Steelers. I think that's when we're going to get it done. Midnight for Javon Hargrave was when the free agency period opened earlier this year. What kind of an impact do you think this guy's going to have? They broke the bank on him, $84 million over 4 years. Kind of in line with that mid-level defensive tackle contract we've seen guys like Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence get. What do you expect Hargrave to do for the 49ers?
Well, it's really interesting what happened, Mike. If I can give you just a little bit of history on this deal that I found out yesterday. I went to Santa Clara 24 hours ago, and basically that was one of the things on my list. What are you doing signing a defensive lineman in free agency? I mean, what got into you guys? Even without Bosa, you've got a pretty good front, anchored kind of by Eric Armstead and you got a great linebacker crew and all that. But so come to find out that they had no intention really of going after a big defensive lineman in free agency. But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch discussed it before the start of free agency. And Shanahan said to Lynch, we were at our best on defense when we could really come at teams in waves. And, in 2019, that's probably, when we were at our best in terms of being able to threaten the quarterback. And so I think the 49ers had no intention of getting a big ticket item in free agency this year just because they knew that they had to get Bosa signed, and there will be more. And so at the end of the day, Lynch and Shanahan got excited about it. And one day, Lynch called the owner, Jed York, and said he wanted to talk to him about it. And he said it took about 3 minutes to convince Jed York that this was the right call, because they had all sort of philosophically decided that they were just going to kind of play defense in free agency this year. But they just thought that who Javon Hargrave was. And I personally thought, I remember going into free agency last year, I thought he was the best guy available in free agency. And Drew Rosenhaus, who's his agent, Mike, called Lynch when Lynch said, we're going to make an offer and all that stuff. He called him and he said, we're kind of surprised we're hearing from you guys. But that's just the way it was. But I think now when you look at that defensive front, I think you're going to see, especially when Bosa comes back, assuming he does, that's going to be, along with the Eagles, really as fearsome a defensive front as there is in the game.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.